Okay, let's start. This is quiz 7, question 1. Okay, you have taken out a loan for $10,000 for 4 years with an interest rate of 5% compounded annually. The loan will be repaid by end of year payments. Fill in all the boxes below and round all entries to the nearest cent. Enter only positive values for all answers. Okay, now we are into a new topic here. This is called amortization, where you will see what's happening with payments. We were calculating payments before, but payments on a loan, we never went into the details as to how much is being paid on as interest and how much is being paid on the principal, meaning the amount of money that was borrowed. Okay, now you may want to know what these terms mean, and here are the definitions of amortization, amortization period, amortization schedule. That's what we'll be doing, a table showing the reduction of a loan's principal balance from period to period or payment to payments, including the payment size, the interest portion, and the principal portion of each period. Okay, and mortgages fall into that category. It's specific to property or real estate that's used as collateral. The borrower enters into an agreement with the lender, usually a bank, wherein the borrower receives cash upfront, then makes payments over a set time span until he or she pays back the lender in full. Okay, so that's what the amortization is about. All right, now we have to solve this problem. So first of all, we do the calculations to get the payment as we normally would do. So this is the size of the loan and 4 years interest rate and how it's compounded. All right, and the payments are made end of year payments. Okay, so let's look at this PowerPoint over here, and we would usually start with the PY. So we can enter a value of 1. Okay, and then we come down to the next one, CY, and that is also 1 because it's compounded annually. Okay, so CY will also be 1. So we come over here and we click in there and we put in the 1. All right, and we usually use the calculator to do that. IY is the interest rate. In this case, it's 5%. So we will come over here and put in for IY, put in the 5%. Okay. Now the present value, of course, is the $10,000 that's been borrowed. Okay, and the future value should be 0 because we like to pay off this loan. All right, so let's put that back in, and there we are. Maybe put it a little bit larger so you can see. So we have the usual PY, CY, and we'll calculate and we'll use the calculator to get that IY, present value, and future value. So we want to compute the payment. Okay, let's go to the calculator. So we turn it on, maybe get it a little bit closer so we can block out the interference. So second IY, PY is 1, enter, and that will enter for CY also. Okay, we get out of there, and this loan is to be paid back in 4 years, correct? It's for 4 years, so there's the 4, so we move the calculator over, put in 4, second, and N. So N turns out to be 4. Let's put it in here. We can put it in. All right, so we put in the value of 4, and we have a value for N. All right, so what next do we do? Well, it's the IY value is 5, so 5 goes in for IY. Present value is $10,000, so we put in 10,000, 0, 0, 0, and that's the present value. Okay, we'd like to compute the payment, so 0 goes in for future value because we expect to pay off this loan. So we compute the payment. The payment works out to be, let's get this out here. All right, so we can, all right, let's see. Okay, we can put it right here. Okay, so it's 2820.12. Right, so that would be the payment. So that's the payment we're making. All right, let's put away the calculator for now, and there we are. Okay, so what next is for us to do? So that number goes in here, 2820.12. Remember, we enter only positive values, all right? Excuse me, please. Okay, so that's the answer in there. Now, what it's saying is the first three payments will be the same, and more than likely the fourth payment will be the same, yes. Okay, so let's enter that value in here. That is the amount of the payment. So 2820.12. Okay, now let's move down on this PowerPoint here, and we will find out. Okay, let's maybe make it a little bit smaller so we have some space to click off of the PowerPoint, and there is what will happen now. We will now use another feature on the calculator, which is the amortization. So it's showing you second PV. So let's clear there. And we go second PV, and you see AMORT, amort. That's the short for amortization. So we'll see these symbols or quantities, variables show up, P1, P2, balance, as it shows here, principal, PRN is short for principal, okay, and INT is the interest. Okay, now these cycle around, so if we look at the next slide here, you see that's exactly what it's showing us. We go second PV, we go into the amortization, we enter the P1 value, that's payment. The P2, that's payment also, then we go down and we get the balance, then we get the principal, how much is paid on the principal, and this is how much is interest, and then it cycles around. So we can go through the payments, like as in over here, the payment number 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. All right, so let's go down and have a look at what else is there. Now, this is an example of what the amortization table will look like. It's very much like this right here. So you start off with a balance, there's zero payment, okay? And so it starts off with this was 16,000, in our case, it's 10,000. And then you see the debt gets reduced and a payment is made over here, which is the payment was right up there. Okay, let's go to the next slide. All right, so we'll make this a little bit smaller so we can get out of the box. And then here is a blank table. All right, so we can use this and fill this in. I know the size is somewhat small, but anyway. So where do we start off? Well, we start off with this $10,000, okay? So that $10,000 is what goes in here. So 10000. All right, okay, now how do we get these payments? Now the payments come by, all right, let's make this larger. Maybe we will move back and forth with these screens so we can get some idea of what is happening. All right, so let's go like that. And maybe we can make this somewhat bigger, go to 100%. Okay, so, all right, the first payment. Now, how is that done? Well, that is the use of the calculator. All right, so here's the calculator, and we're into the amortization. Just to show you again, let's get out of this mode as we normally do, second CPT, and to go in, amort is above PV, or present value. So second PV will put us into where the amortization begins. Okay, so the first number we put in, P1 is 1, so we put 1 for P1, and then for P2 we enter 1 also. Okay, then as we go down, we see this number here. So that number goes in here. It's the balance after the first payment. So let's move this a little bit so we can see what we're doing. And then we can enter the numbers properly. So 7679.88. All right, so we go down, and the next thing is the principal. So this is what was paid on the principal. So that number goes in here, 2320.12. Okay, we can round the numbers. Okay, next one is the interest. So we paid $500 of interest. So 500. And how much was the payment? Well, the payment was calculated before. We could go on the calculator and get it, or we could just minimize the calculator and we can see the first payment is this payment right here, 2820.12. Okay, so this number is 2820.12. Now, observe a few things here. So this is the starting balance. And what will you see here? Well, you will see if we move this over, that right there is the sum of what? That will be the sum of this number right here and this number right here. Okay, let's put this in here. So there you are. All right. So if you add this number to this number, 2320.12 to 500, we should get 2820.12. And we can demonstrate that. We'll just have to get out of this mode and go in and put in 2320.12. We add that to 500 and we get 2820.12. Okay, so that is what happens. All right, so let's go back into our amortization mode. Okay, so that was the first payment. The first payment, P1 is equal to 1 and P2 is equal to 1. They have to be the same numbers. So let's go to see what happens after this second payment. Okay, so 2 and enter for P1. And then P2, we click on 2 and click enter. And we go down. So now the balance is 5243.76 if we round it. Okay, it's 0.757, so it'll go up to 76.76. Okay, next number is how much we paid on the principal. So that number is 2436.12. Okay, the next number is what? The amount of interest that was paid. The amount of interest was 383.99. All right, so what will happen here? These numbers should add up, but it will be just a bit off there, 2.12. That is actually the payment, but as you can see, because of a bit of rounding here, when you add these two, this one and this one here, it will not come exactly to 2820.12. You'll get 2820.11. You can see from the 99 and the 12 over there. Anyway, let's not worry about that. Let's keep the process going, and let's go over here now. Okay, so we click on, let's get out of there. We click here and P1. Now we go for the third payment. Enter, and P2 we enter 3. So what do we get? Well, whoops, sorry. P1 is 2, P2 is 2, P3 is now, sorry, I did the same thing. I should go to payment number 3. So enter 3 and enter, and P2 we enter 3, and now we come down. Now the balance is 2685.83. All right, And how much was paid on the, how much interest was paid? Okay, the principal, we paid 2557. So this number here is 2557.93. And then the amount of interest paid is 262.19. Okay, if we round it, that is what we'll get. Now over here, we come back to the correct number and we get the 2820.12. So we are down here right now. Okay, this is the line right here for P1 equals 3 and P2 is equal to 3. And this here is the balance. All right, okay, so there we are. All right, so the last payment. Okay, so let's go and we put in 4 for P1. And then we go down for P2 and we put in 4 also. And now we go. The balance, it's showing way over here, but the balance is 0. Okay, 0.00, so we can put that in 0.00. All right, so let's see how much was paid on the principal, 2685.83, and that seems to be correct, 2685.83. As you see, this number right here, okay, let's pull this down maybe, corresponds to that number up there. Okay, so there you are. All right, this number has to correspond to that number because it's the last payment. We have to pay off the debt. Okay, the amount of interest paid is 134.29. So it's 134.29. Okay, and over here, if we add those two numbers, we should get it 2820.12. All right, so we can remove these. You can see it's a 0 there. And as I showed you before, this number here would be the same as this number here. Okay, so we can put these back over here. We can remove that. Now we're focusing on the total. All right, so let's see what happens with this. Okay, the payment is easy because if you take the 2820.12 and multiply it by 4, okay, let's come out of here. So we go 2820.12 and multiply by 4, we will get, what do we get? Well, let's remove this and put the number in first. 11280.48. All right, so that number is in. Okay, so that is the total there. Okay, so how do we get these interest and principal? There's an easy way to do that. Let's go back into the amortization mode, second PV. Now, P1, if we put in P1 as 1, let's say enter, and the P2 as 4, okay, let's put the 4 and enter, then what comes up? Well, it's actually the total you're getting. So in this case, the balance is 0. Okay, let's go down and see what happens. And you see this number in here, all right, becomes the $10,000, which was that is what was paid. You see this number up here, okay, and this number down here are the same, correct? These two right here, okay? They have to be the same. All right, because the debt is being paid off. Okay, how much interest? Well, let's see. The interest was 1280.47. Okay, so this number here, as you can see, it's a little bit off. It's off by 1 cent. 10,000 plus 1280.47, it's kind of 1 cent off. All right, but that is the idea of how the table is generated. So when P1 and P2 are not the same, if P1 is 1 and P2 is 4, it gives us the total or the sum of the column of numbers. Okay, now that is for balance, principal, and interest. So there you are. So that is how this table is generated. All right, now we could take those numbers and put them over here. Okay, so we'll have to move this over. Okay, so we have enough space to see, and maybe we can do some, okay, maybe we can do some manipulation and move this a little bit. Oops, sorry. If we move this over a little bit, how do we get the balance? Okay, we can see the balance over there, and we can move that over. Okay, yes, we're quite in line now. We can do it properly. So I started out with the 10,000, and then down here you put in this 7, or the 7679.88. Okay, over here we put in the 2320.12, and then we go over here, we put in the 500. All right, let's come down here. We have 383.99, and then over here we have 2436.12, and then over here we have 5243.76. Okay, let's go down. Payment number 3, so we're in this line here. So the interest is how much? 262.19. Okay, the principal is right up there. The amount paid on the principal, sorry, is 2557.93, and then the balance is right over here, 2685.83. Okay, and then we go down now to the last line, which is right in here. So this payment was indeed the same because they are equal payments. There are 4 equal payments that are being made. So now the interest is 134.29, next one 2685.83, and then the balance is 0.00. Now we get to the total. The total payments is 11280.48, and this interest, the amount of interest paid is 1280.47, and the principal that we paid was 10,000. Okay, I know you're not seeing the headings on the columns, but it's how much is paid, the payment, and then the interest, principal, repaid. Okay, and then the balance. All right, now the point where there was a bit of a glitch was right in here. Okay, so this one, if we add those 2 numbers, you see this one right here. Okay, if we were accurate, then we should put in a 1 in there. All right, and if we put a, oh, sorry. Okay, we would put a 1 in there, correct? And if we put a 1 in there, this would turn out to be a 7, correct? Now, you're probably wondering if that happens, what will happen with the answers? Okay, let's check the answers first because that number will not go in there. But let's see if we put in here a 7. Oops, sorry. Let's see if we put in here a 7, what happens? We submit the question and we'll see if all our numbers are right. Okay, it turns out that it accepts that 1 cent difference. Okay, so that is how the table is generated. If you look over here, this one is of course more colorful. Let's enlarge it so you can see it all in color. Start off with a balance, and if you notice, okay, let's remove this from here. You see, as the payments increase, well, as you move from 1, 2, 3, 4 later in the payments, then the principal increases. You're paying more on the principal and less in interest, and that's what happens to loans. As you're paying the same amount, but you're paying more on the principal and less in interest. as the loan is being paid off. All right. So let's go back here. We can enlarge this. And now we can see the whole scenario. So first we calculate the payment, and then we use our calculator and get into the amortization table. To generate the amortization table, we go into the amortization menu. Okay, as you saw before, we go in there by, let's come out of here, click second, PV, and then we start the process. Okay, if P1 is 1 and P2 is 1, then we get the payment, we get the row. Okay, if P1 is 1 and P2 is 4, then we get the sum or the total for that column. Okay, so that's the number right there. That was the balance. Okay, sorry, the calculator went off. And that's the principal right there. Sorry, the principal repaid, or how much was paid on the loan. And then there is the interest and so on. So it comes around and then you keep the calculation going. All right, hopefully that helps you and you'll be able to go and now apply that to your question and be able to generate this table successfully. Okay, so that is question 1 of quiz number 7.